and he recalls it as a lively town when he was growing up. It did, however, have an infamous past. Back in 1919, Phillips County was a hotbed of racial unrest, with black citizens protesting unfair sharecropping practices, trying to organize a farmers' union, while white planters were quaking in fear of a communist revolution. Terrified that a black insurrection was at hand, white women and children were evacuated to Helena, while those who stayed behind were barricaded in heavily guarded buildings. When shots were fired at a black church meeting, authorities claimed a riot was underway. The Helm family heeded the warnings, armed with guns to defend themselves and their property, but the unrest never reached them. Some whites rampaged through the countryside, killing all the blacks they encountered. Troops were sent in, and all blacks in the area were thrown into a stockade. Those who supported unionization were charged with murder and tortured to elicit confessions. Morse Gist, who became the proprietor of a Helena music store, remembered his mother telling him that his father, an ex-trooper, was called back into service. His dad was sent to Elaine, where, Gist said, "I got the impression he was not very proud of what took place down there." Levon was born into a state that had never fully recovered from the Civil War. The economy had been devastated, and slavery was replaced by sharecropping, which was still a form of peonage for blacks and poor whites. Following a feeble recovery in the 1920s, the Great Flood, Great Drought, then Great Depression brought more disaster to Arkansas. Of the 1930s in the Arkansas Delta, English novelist Naomi Mitchinson wrote, "I have traveled over most of Europe and part of Africa, but I have never seen such terrible sights as I saw yesterday among the sharecroppers of Arkansas." Elaine is situated only a couple of miles from the Mississippi River, and when Nell and Diamond lived there with their first baby, Medina, before Levon was born, there were gangs of itinerant laborers working on the nearby levee. Some of these drifters were ruthless criminals, and on one occasion the Helm family found their country cabin surrounded. As Levon heard it, "One night they were having supper. They heard a rattling at the door. They heard a rattle at the window. They knew there was somebody out there. A rattle at the back door. They knew there were a lot of people out there. My dad makes a big show of taking up his shotgun, loading it up, getting behind my mom. Mom picks up the baby, picks up the lamp. They walk out the door. Nobody bothers them. They knew they got to keep walking, and there was nothing to look back for. The food on the table was what it was all about." When Levon was a baby, more than half of all Arkansans were farmers, and the state was limping out of the Depression. Residents had poor access to health care, and a survey of the state's school children found that 90% displayed some physical ailment, including rickets and undernourishment. The quality of education was well below the national average, with only 70,000 of the 170,000 youths of high school age enrolled in school. Only 8.7% of those aged 25 and over had completed 4 years of high school. When the draft for World War II was instituted in September 1940, there was a problem recruiting in Arkansas because so many men were not up to military standards, a rejection rate of 43% due to poor health and low education levels. As the war ended, mechanized agriculture was displacing laborers, and many returning veterans dismissed farming outright. Combined with a lack of jobs in other sectors, it all led to a population decrease in 1940s Arkansas. Then there was the stain of segregation, a reality of the South while Levon was growing up. The first school district in Arkansas's Delta region to integrate was Hoxie in 1955, but in 1957, Governor Orville Faubus used the Arkansas National Guard to prevent integration at Little Rock's Central High School. Levon's father, Jasper Diamond Helm, was born in 1910 in Holly Grove, directly